mean, it would just be nice to be thanked a bit.
Right.
You know, to say, good job, Aid, while everyone else sits on their arse.
Oh,
you know, I work hard. No one works harder in politics than me.
Is that right?
I work harder than Harry Cole's arteries.
Jesus Christ. You know you're on a mic right now, right?
Ladies and gents, welcome to another Punk Politics with me, Aid Thompsin. The fallout from the concrete schools, or concrete gate, or concretins, continues. The story doesn't appear to be going anywhere, and the idea the government could come back from summer recess with a fresh start in September is now dead in the water, which is inconvenient for the Tories because that's the goal of their other initiative. In fact, embarrassingly for the Prime Minister, much like an actual concrete gate, government has been almost impossible to open. Anyway, let's take a look at how this story has developed since Sunday night's Punk. Let's ask that same question those passed out babysitters did in your Uncle Paul's basement. How did we get here? All of this started on Friday morning when papers reported that just a few days from the schools reopening for autumn term, 156 of them were being told to remain closed because they were no longer safe to enter. Yay! No more school! Oh, God. Maybe no more daddy. Now, sensing the depth of feeling around this, the Tories utilised that famous superpower empathy and deployed a crack squad team of oxygen-starved crayon eaters to reassure the public. And yet, it's funny, isn't it? Like, somehow being told the government weren't going to name the schools affected and being repeatedly told, most schools are not death traps.
There's 22,500 schools. We're talking about 156.
Parents remained angry, and now yesterday things got even worse for the government when a former civil servant entered the fray to say,
so the actual ask in the spending review in 2021 was to double the 100 to 200. That's what we thought was going to be practical in the first instance. I thought we'd get it, but the actual decision that the Chancellor took in 21 was to halve the size of the programme.
Now, let me just focus on that for a minute, because that's important. This was in 2020. That is a year after the Gravesend Kent school collapsed in on itself. And the only reason that didn't kill any kids is solely because it happened on a Saturday. And because it's, you know, public sector and they can't get anything right. I thought you said we could take a few of them out in one go with this stuff. You know, fewer plebs and scroungers in the future. No, we tried to tell you. Regular state school kids go home to their parents on the weekend. Oh, for f***'s sake. So it's 2020. And the Department for Education, the civil service say, look, in order to keep up with this rot, this problem with this concrete, at the moment, we're refurbishing 100 schools a year. Ideally, we need to get that up to 300 to 400 to stay ahead of this thing. But the minimum is probably doubling it to 200. And the then Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, says, actually, no, you can have half. And they're like, whoa, we get half of the existing figure. Yeah, that's right. I'm going to halve it. And the guy says the department were absolutely amazed by this decision. Presumably, like there is a critical risk to children's lives here. This isn't a hypothetical. This is already happening. Like, you kind of need to look at 300 to 400. The minimum is 200. Like, the state of these state schools, bro. Paint peeling, roofs leaking, fallen in beams. Like, we've already got abandoned YouTubers rocking up and filming. Like, like American teenagers rocking up with their DSLR, filming these things, thinking they're old disused buildings. Whoa. I guess this is where they would teach the kids in this old abandoned school. And we're like, no, lads, no, don't let the movies fool you. This is just a regular, in-use, active English classroom. What the Anyway, Sunak was reportedly like, I don't give a shit. Like, you don't give a shit about kids? The kids. The kids? Well, no, don't the kids. You're not Peter Morrison, for God's sake. But still, half the refurb budgets. Maybe expecting him to take education and refurbishment budgets seriously and the idea of state school classrooms descending into death. Maybe that was too much to ask of any Tory politician in 2020. It wasn't like any of them had a clear head, was it? We weren't just saying there was a significant risk of fatality. We were saying there was a critical risk to life if this programme is not funded. Meeting these allegations yesterday head on, Sunak returned fire, stepping up, ready for his moment. This is my favourite bit. You ready? You ready? Okay, cool. Lights, camera, soon action.
No, I think that is completely and utterly wrong. Actually, one of the first things I did as Chancellor in my first spending review in 2020 was to announce a new 10-year school rebuilding programme for 500 schools. Now, that equates to about 50 schools a year.
So, back up a minute, right? So the civil service guy, he says, all right, we're renewing 100 schools a year at the moment. We really need to get to 300 or 400, but the minimum is 200. And then he says, and yeah, Sunak just took the 100 and then halved it to 50, and like, that's really messed up. And then Sunak's response to that is...
No, I think that is completely and utterly wrong.
I approved it for 50.
Now, that equates to about 50 schools a year.
It's like, he halved it to 50. That is completely wrong. I halved it to 50. 50 schools a year. And I know what you're thinking. You know, he's talking about, you know, halving this, and then he's always on about halving inflation. Yeah, maybe that's just his vibe. It's like he always takes a thing and then reduces it by 50%, you know? Like, hey, Rishi, like, can we have 300 million to run this hospital? Try and do it with 150 mil and let me know how you get on. Like, I get it. It's very Silicon Valley. It's very, do less with more. Keep it efficient. I get it. Don't listen to him, Harvey. Like, he probably did the same when that US tech college asked him to donate $3 million. What happened then? Did Harvey give them 1.5? And the Sunaks have recently donated $3 million to Claremont McKenna. No. That's interesting. Meanwhile, his own local constituency state school had to run a raffle to raise $5,000 to buy half a classroom's worth of computers. Let me know how you get on with half. So only half the class can learn that Silicon Valley skill set that the Sunaks are so passionate about. And that's only if the structural beams don't tear through their heads before the things boot up. So here we have a privately educated Prime Minister who once boasted of not having any working class friends, who gives millions to US tech colleges while his own constituency state schools go without, who ignores his own civil services reports of the risk of fatality. I don't know, like it all builds up, doesn't it? It all sort of paints a picture that maybe, I don't know, I don't want to speak untoward here, guys, but I'm getting the idea that maybe Harvey might not have our best interests at heart. 50 schools a year. Anyway, shortly after Sunak had tried to fix this, like, well, I'm sorry, Gillian, but I tried. And how did it go? Terrible. The baton of Bellendry was passed back to Conservative MP and star of Sec Education, Gillian Keegan, who was back on the rounds to tell us all she's been working her arse off, and frankly, we should all be thanking her.
Does anyone ever say, you know what, you've done a good job because everyone else has sat on their arse and done nothing? No signs of that?
I mean, even if you set aside the obvious hot mic, thick of it tones to that, the idea we should be thanking the Conservative government Minister for Education at a time when a Conservative government have allowed state schools to collapse into a state of disrepair is a government line so tone deaf it could harmonise with a fox f***ing. You know, like, people are going to watch that and they're going to be like, oh, I'm sorry, we should thank the government now, should we? I've got 3 kids back at home now because I can't afford childcare. I'm running Zoom calls with my boss who thinks that work from home is lazy because he reads your rags. But yeah, silly me.
You've done a good job because everyone else has sat on their arse.
This whole time, I thought maybe the Personal Responsibility Brigade might come in, hold their hands up and go, yeah, we get it, and we're going to fix it. What a Burke I am for thinking that. Clearly, we should thank the face of Conservative underfunding. Thank you, Gilly. Thank you, Tories, for the crumbling state of our comprehensive and primaries. Thank you for the advent of this new era of self-burying pleblets. In a separate interview some hours later, Keegan was played the footage of her own sweary performance and also footage of a head teacher reacting to her swearing. Anyway, you get the idea. The story has now become as much a story about terrible PR and comms as it was a story about the original issue itself, with even the Daily Mail and the Telegraph firing broadsides this morning. Minister's TV blunder that says it all about Tory chaos. Keegan fighting for survival. I saw that this morning. I was like, whoa, Holy PR-mageddon, Batman! This is looking bad. I mean, if newspapers, with their dwindling sales and plummeting ad revenue, if they're telling you that you're fighting for survival, maybe it's time to cash out. In a weird twist of fate, former cabinet minister and Ted Bundy lookalike Gavin Williamson was yesterday apologising to the House for bullying former Chief Whip Wendy Morton. He did so, of course, but perhaps unsurprisingly, it didn't take long for journos to start drawing parallels between his conduct and Gillian Keegan's. Williamson apologised for having used the sort of language that had made Gillian Keegan blush. Will she resign? Will she get fired for all of this? It's a tricky one. Like, look, I don't work in government recruitment. I don't think anybody does. But given the scale of this mess and the breadth and the depth of feeling to it and how badly this has been managed and how embarrassing it's been from them, I would say there is a strong chance that she could be promoted. Do I think she should resign? I don't know. I mean, the mistakes here appear big enough, and it is sort of becoming about her. And if Sunak has a choice of allowing this scandal to further travel upwards, engulfing him, or throw her under the bus, you can guarantee he'll go for the latter. Plus, I think, between the Mail and the Telegraph coverage and the fact that this is something that's going to touch an awful lot of people across the country, I mean, it is the very definition of cut through. And you've got journalists drawing parallels between your conduct and this Ted Bundy looking motherfucker. Like the guy who got fired for the A-levels chaos and telling his colleagues to slit your throat and jump out of a window. I don't know, like it feels to me like when he's in the same sentence as you, maybe it's time to accept that the walls are closing in, if not crumbling. But what do you guys think? Do you think it's imminent? Do you think she should go? Or is this actually all on Rishi Sunak for that 2020 budget business? And maybe Keegan's just trying to get a grip on it and now is rightly or wrongly being used as a sort of human shield. Maybe she's toast by the time I even upload this. Anyway, as always, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Anyway, I've got to go. I've got to go and set up 3 shell companies with no prior experience of school building and then circle back round and drop in a 10 grand check to CCHQ. Peace.